Chapter 4. Ranofer awoke with the plan fully formed in his mind. He sat up, blinking and confused. Was he still dreaming? Surely, when he closed his eyes last night he had felt no hope, seen no way out. Yet this morning a solution was here before him. Carefully, afraid to believe in it yet, he examined his plan. Except for one small risk, he found it flawless. Obviously the gods had brought it to him while he slept. Doubtless it was one god only, he thought more humbly as he rolled up his mat and started for the storeroom. A minor god, one of no importance, who perhaps helped me for my father's sake. Or perhaps it was no god at all, but my father himself. He stood still beside the water jar, feeling the tears come into his eyes and sting the lids. If that were true, if he could think his father's ba sometimes fluttered out of the tomb by night on its little bird wings and came to see if all was well with him. His eyes narrowed suddenly in an effort to call back a memory of the night, or perhaps a dream. No, it was not a dream. Something had happened, deep in the middle of the night. A step? A sound? That was it, a sound. It had half awakened him, and he had been afraid for a moment, because he had thought it was the squeak of the leather hinges on Gaboo's bedroom door. He knew now it had not been the hinges. It was the soft fluttering of his father's ba. Finding the earthen mug in his hand, he dipped it into the water jar and drank. As he did so, an idea came to him. He turned quickly to the shelf. On it was a plate containing 2 bread loaves, half an onion, and the scanty remnants of a salted fish, the leavings from Gaboo's breakfast. It seemed a banquet, and never had Ranofer been so glad to see plenty, instead of not enough. Scrupulously, he divided the food in half, taking pains even with the crumbs. One half he ate, the other he knotted into his ragged sash as he hurried out of the courtyard. In the street, he cast an anxious glance at the sun. If he hurried, there would be just enough time to thank his father properly. A few minutes later, he was scrambling breathlessly along a path to northwest of the City of the Dead, where the cliffs curved far inward toward the river. In the sandy wasteland around him were the graves of the city's poor, each with an earthen jug or a plate beside it holding the sun-dried remnants of a funerary offering. Behind this common burial ground, the rough face of the cliff was honeycombed with the better tombs of artisans and scribes and merchants, carved into the rock itself. One of these was Thutra, the goldsmith's. Arriving at this place, Ranofer stopped a moment to catch his breath. Then, respectfully, he entered the tiny chapel of his father's tomb. It was no more than a shallow alcove hewn into the face of the cliff, with an offering table against one wall and a small stone statue of Thutra opposite. Facing the entrance was a false door, built against the bricked inside of the shaft that dropped straight downward to the burial chamber itself. Ranofer looked with large eyes at this door. It could not open. It was not made so, yet through it his father's ba had magically emerged last night and fluttered on silent wings to the street of the Crooked Dog to help his son. Ranofer turned to the little statue. It was not a good likeness. Gaboo had hired an indifferent sculptor whose price was cheap, and the result looked nothing like the Thutra Ranofer remembered, but it was all he had. "Father?" he said softly. His voice seemed to set up a curious rustling in that silent place. He darted a wary glance at the false door, not knowing whether to feel hopeful or afraid. However, not wraith-like, human-headed bird appeared. No wraith-like, human-headed bird appeared. Untying his sash, he arranged the bits of food upon the plate on the offering table. It looked a poor enough meal to set before one's father. Perhaps he should not have eaten the other half. Father will understand how hungry I was, he thought. Turning to the statue again, he whispered rapidly, "Father, thank you. I'm sorry I could not bring a better gift. Please, please come again." With a little bow and a last odd look at the false door, he backed out of the chapel and set off hurriedly for Rex's shop and his work. By the time he arrived at the street of the goldsmiths, he had thought over the plan once more. It was a good plan, except for the one risk. He must confide in Haket. Dared he trust so much to another's ears and tongue? Especially to a boy he had known only 2 short days. The more he thought of it, the larger the risk seemed. No matter, I must take it, he thought. There is no other way. If I can find him alone, somehow. Haket was nowhere in sight as Ranofer hurried toward the familiar gate. Indeed, the street was almost deserted. Guiltily, Ranofer broke into a run, but he entered the courtyard to find the morning weighing already over, and everyone scattering to the first tasks. Red-faced and breathless, Ranofer presented himself to Rec. "I crave pardon, Neb Goldsmith, for coming late. I could not help it. I carried an offering to my father's tomb." "May his 3,000 years be full of joy," Rec said gravely. "You are excused, son who honors his father. Go now to the first craftsman and find out your task." Seta was at the far end of the courtyard with Haket beside him. The craftsman turned as Ranofer came toward him, and his roar could be heard all over the shop. "There he is at last! Where have you been for half the morning, tardy one, idler? No excuses. Here, show this ignorant one how to make hard solder. I want 4 days' supply ready by the time Ra's chariot is there." Pointing irascibly straight up, Seta stalked away. Haket put a finger in his ear and wiggled it rapidly. "I thought I heard a voice," the cow remarked as she stood on the leopard's tail. "Seta is not so bad as he sounds," Ranofer said with the laugh Haket always drew out of him. "Still, we've none too much time to make 4 days' supplies of solder. Come along." "What luck," he was thinking as he led the way to the scales. "We can talk as we work, with no one suspecting. I wish I knew for certainty that Haket can guard a secret. I must try to find out more about him. I'll ask him questions, personal ones, such as he is always asking. He has discovered enough about me in the past 2 days." While they waited for their supply of metals to be weighed out, Ranofer tried in vain to devise such questions. He could not think of one. It did not help that he had constantly to answer the dozens that flowed from Haket as usual without the slightest effort. "Oh, do we mix copper in the solder?" "Of course. You cannot solder gold with gold." "Why not?" "Because your work would melt in the same moment as your solder, donkey head. The solder must first melt." "Oh, then what's the silver for?" "We use it too." "In the solder?" "Aye, I'll explain everything presently. Go fetch the molds." "Of course, which ones?" "Well, one is flat and—" "Like you were using for the ingots?" "Nay, never mind, I'll fetch them myself," Ranofer said distractedly. "Here, take the metals to that far oven yonder and wait for me." A few moments later, he spread everything upon a workbench beside the designated oven, which he had chosen because no one chanced to be working near it today. Before Haket could start talking again, he said in a low voice, "I have something to ask of you. It is important." Haket looked at him, then glanced around the courtyard. "Ask away, friend. There is no one listening." Ranofer's lips parted, then closed again as his courage failed. But first we had best begun the work." Avoiding Haket's curious eyes, he reached for a pair of snippers, motioning the other to do the same. "We cut these scraps in lengths of wire into small pieces, about the size you see. Copper in the bowl, silver in this, and gold here." As he began to snip, he searched his mind frantically for those clever, probing questions. "Where do you live?" he blurted finally, then flushed because of all questions he might have selected, this was the least clever, also the least useful, he told himself exasperatedly. "Why, you know," Haket said with a mild surprise, "at the apprentices' quarters." "Nay, I mean at home. Where do your parents live?" "Oh, they live upriver, at Hermonthis. Did you wonder why I do not sleep at home?" "Nay, it doesn't matter to me where you live, of course." "It matters exceedingly to my parents," remarked Haket with a laugh. "Our house is small, and I have 6 brothers and a sister, all younger than I. Things got a little crowded, as the mole explained when he crawled out of the ant-hill." Ranofer flashed him an uneasy smile, but pressed on with his questions. "Your father, he is an artisan, perhaps?" There was a short silence. Ranofer looked round to find Haket studying him, sharp intelligence written over every feature of his homely, good-natured face. "Nay, my father is overseer of storehouses on Lord Mahotep's estate. It is a position of trust, and I was brought up to know that word. Many times I have helped my father tally the mistress's cupboard with all her fine trinkets, the golden boxes, the necklaces, the goblets with silver stems. It was handling them that first made me want to make such things, I think. Many times, too, father bade me take delicacies to the master's table, to see if I would tuck a honey cake into my sash, or eat just one grape. Often he whispered me a trumped-up secret, to test if I would blab it to another." Haket paused again, smiling. "You need not worry, Ranofer. I know how to keep my lips sealed." Ranofer's face felt as if fires were burning beneath the skin. "I ask your pardon," he mumbled. No need of it, friend. I am not offended. In a somewhat awkward silence, both boys turned back to their snipping. Presently, Haket remarked cheerfully, Solder making is the easiest of tasks, if this is all there is to it. Ranofer returned with a start to the business at hand. We have only begun. I fear my mind is not on my work. As the worm said when the lark bit its head off, Haket replied glibly. Both boys giggled, and the atmosphere was easy again. I do not know how you think of all those jokes, Ranofer said as he dragged the mold forward. Nor I, Haket said airily. Are we to snip no more? There is metal left over. We'll do that later. Poke up the fire a bit. Now, do you see the block of charcoal with the hollow in it, and this funny-looking mold? Rapidly, Ranofer explained the hearthstone mold, a stone ground flat with a bar-shaped depression in the center and little grooves scraped from it to let the air out. As he talked, he wired the block of charcoal firmly to one end of the stone, then began measuring snippets of metal into the hollow in the charcoal. Gold first, then copper. Not too much, you see. It makes the solder a good rich color, but if we used copper alone, the solder would not flow easily. Therefore we add silver too. Now put it to the fire. Nay, not the stone. Great Amon, turn the whole thing about. It is the block of the charcoal we want to heat. It is true, I am a donkey head, Haket said meekly. Ranofer laughed, then grew serious. Nay, you are not. You saw at once why I was asking you those questions. I do not blame you, friend. Only a fool pours beer into a vessel without making sure it will not leak. Look, the charcoal is glowing. Both boys leaned over the oven. There, Ranofer said, as the metal snippings collapsed into liquid. Now tilt it gently. Together they watched the molten puddle run from the hollowed charcoal into the stone mold to which it was wired. Half a minute later, they were knocking a thin, flat bar of solder out onto the workbench. Ranofer picked it up and showed it to Haket. There it is. Do the next one yourself. I will go on snipping. While we work, I will tell you this thing. Ranofer glanced around the courtyard. Everyone was busy. Ibni was nowhere in sight. He took up the snippers, Haket the tiny measuring scoop. Their heads bent close together. Ranofer drew a long breath, hesitated one more anxious moment, then plunged straight into the middle of his story. Haket, I know who's stealing gold from the shop. Great Taw's whiskers! Haket's head snapped up. His jaw dropped. Shh! I know who was stealing, and I know how he was doing it. But are you certain? I am certain. Then you must tell Rek. Why, it is wonderful. St! Keep your voice down. I want to tell Rek, but I cannot. Why can you not? Because I have been helping the thief. Haket became very still. Without daring to look at him, Ranofer whispered, I did not know I was helping. I swear it. I did not even know gold was missing until Rek told me 2 days ago. Then I started thinking. He turned to Haket miserably. It was those wineskins. Wineskins? You saw Ibni tried to give me one yesterday. I carried them home. I have been doing it for months, never knowing. Do you see? Ibni is nothing but a tool in the hands of my half-brother, and so am I. Haket's eyes looked into his, wide and comprehending. Suddenly, the first craftsman's bellow rang across the courtyard. Well, dreamers, do you mean to stand all day and gawk at one another? Get on with your solder-making. Both boys jumped to their work. For a few moments, until Seda turned back into the shop, their hands flew and their tongues were still. Then Haket, straightening from the oven, murmured, You can tell Rek. He would not believe you meant to steal from him. Perhaps not. It makes no difference. It is not Rek I fear. It is Gaboo. Gaboo? What would he do if you told? What would anyone do with a tool that turned on him? Look out, your mixture is melting. As Haket bent hastily to the mold, Ranofer went on snipping and whispering with equal urgency. What would you do with a hammer that would not balance, or a knife that would not cut? You would break it in anger, then get another. But if Gaboo is seized for the thefts, Gaboo will never be seized, only Ibni or I. Haket thought a moment. You refused to take that wineskin yesterday. Aye. Ranofer gave an involuntary shiver. I will not refuse the next one, you may be sure of it. Gaboo is a devil, I tell you. I do not want to go on thieving for him, yet I must until Rek is told. Then Rek must be told. Aye, but I cannot do it. I cannot, Haket. Therefore what? Therefore I want you to tell him. I? Haket faced him startled. Why not? He will believe you. Oh, you must, I beg it of you. But I know nothing about it. How is it done? Or, I will tell you all that. There is only one way it could be done, I am sure of it. Rapidly, Ranofer explained that what he suspected about Ibni in the big washing vats. Haket nodded slowly. I had not thought of those vats, nor has Rek, I'll wager. For proof, Rek need only find where Ibni hides that wineskin, some cranny in the storeroom, very likely. He must drop the gold in it, bit by bit, a grain at a time, because 10 days or more go by between the times I am called on to take home Gaboo's little gift. Ranofer spat angrily, then with a glance toward the shop, picked up his snippers again. It is clever, so hard to trace, Haket said, yet I see quite well how it could be done. You have not yet said that you will tell Rek. I will tell him, friend. Ranofer drew in his breath with painful relief. Thank you. I thought you would help me, but and you will not whisper to anyone that it came from me, because Gaboo would learn of it. I'll not mention your name. Leave everything to me. Perhaps I had best not go to Rek at all until tomorrow, since you and I have been seen talking together today. Aye, that would be best. I'll not come near you for a few days. Psst! Here comes Seta. The boys sealed their agreement with a glance and fell busily to work. There was no chance to say more, not even another "thank you," for Seta stayed near the rest of the morning. After the midday break, the boys separated to different tasks, but Ranofer's head rang with the words all day, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Then, that evening, as he was leaving the shop, he saw Ibni waiting, with the wineskin in his hand. Ranofer stopped, aghast. He had forgotten that this was bound to happen. He would have turned back into the shop, dodged down an alley, vanished into thin air if he could. But there was no avoiding the Babylonian this time. His voice was as wheedling as ever, but there was an open threat in his eyes as he stepped in front of Ranofer and blocked his way. "Ah, greetings to you, little one. I feared I had missed you with my little gift. You were mistaken yesterday, were you not, when you told me the message from your honored half-brother? Did you not find out that you had misunderstood him? Surely he would like a little wine made from our own grapes." "Give it to me and be gone," Ranofer said through set teeth. He snatched the wineskin stalked by the Babylonian, and taking pleasure in treading on his toe as he passed. Half blinded by angry tears, he almost walked straight into Haket, who was lurking in a doorway farther down the street, waiting for him. Ranofer motioned in silence toward the wineskin. "Aye," Haket said, "this will spoil our plan for tomorrow, won't it?" "It spoils everything, everything. Here is the proof we need in my hand, before we even had time to make use of it. Now we will have to wait and wait and wait until he's collected more in another wineskin. We will wait then. 4 or 5 days will make little difference, after all. How do we know? I do not want to wait." "If we must, we must." Haket touched Ranofer's shoulder awkwardly. "Never fear. We'll catch him, as the tortoise said to the snail." Ranofer tried to smile, but he could not help feeling that Haket's smile had for once been unfortunately chosen. He started homeward, the hated wineskin under his arm. When he arrived at the Street of the Crooked Dog, he found Gaboo in such roaring good humor that he knew the beatings, at least, were over for a while. Wenamon, Gaboo's friend of the noiseless feet and drooping cloak, had been paying a call. The two were on their way down the stair as Ranofer entered the courtyard. "Hi, it is the little messenger," bellowed Gaboo as his eyes went to the wineskin. To Wenamon he added in an undertone, "Boo! It is of small importance now, eh?" and burst into a roar of laughter. Before Ranofer had time to wonder what he meant, he beckoned peremptorily. "Well, well, come here, messenger. Make your delivery and receive your reward." Ranofer approached cautiously, handed the wineskin to him, and jumped back out of range. He did not trust Gaboo's rewards. This time, however, Gaboo paid no attention to him. He was showing the wineskin to Wenamon with a grin. "A gift from a friend, grown on his own vines and made by his wife's hand. Is that not touching? A pity we cannot drink it." Ranofer did not think so. It was obvious Gaboo had drunk a great deal of wine already. He started for the storeroom to see if there was anything to eat. "Stay! Do you not want the reward I promised?" Gaboo shouted. "I had that yesterday," Ranofer muttered. "So you did, but you'll like this one better, I dare say." There was a metallic clink on the pavement behind Ranofer. He whirled in astonishment and saw a copper ring coin lying there. "Well, pick it up, pick it up. Do you think it is a scorpion? Now go buy food and eat it. I can count every rib in your back. First take the wineskin up to my—" Gaboo stopped abruptly, then grinned at Wenamon and finished, "Nay, I will take it." He staggered noisily up the stairs. While he was gone, Ranofer stood clutching his copper and enduring Wenamon steady, bright-eyed gazed. It made every hair on his head prickle, and seemed to go on forever. At last Gaboo reappeared, without taking further notice of Ranofer. The two left the courtyard, and started down the street in the direction of the docks. Ranofer wasted no time in taking advantage of Gaboo's sudden generosity. The moment the sound of raucous singing had faded around the corner, he slipped out of the gate and ran in the opposite direction. With luck, Kai, the baker's boy, would have a few loaves left, and he could eat his fill for once.